Hello, this is Brendon. I am gonna read. It's like the first chapter, but I'm still not done with it. But it was gonna be a book. It still is gonna be a book called possibly that a fake story of how the universe works, or are we living in a computer, or what? It could be a whole bunch of stuff. But this is it's good stuff. I mean, it's really good stuff I've been studying. I haven't got much of it, but I'm really into it, and I'm really into some of these things these older, wiser adults have said in the past. I mean, get you know, you know, uh, just older, wiser men. I mean, that seem to know what they're talking about. So, I've been studying on it. I put some of their stuff, not in here, but I have, just thought that maybe I understood what they were saying, because I really don't know what they were saying at all, and I'm sure even if I quoted them, it would somehow not line up. So, okay, so with that being said, here we go. Because of the uncertainty principle in quantum mechanics, I'm not sure what the objects are before my eyes at any given time. And given science is mostly theories on how the surrounding world exists, I sort of guess, I suppose most of the intelligent people in the world sort of guess. So I have a new idea, a new reality. How does the room surrounding me exist? How do the walls in the room get their color? At first I thought perhaps the reflection of the walls changed or canceled out part of the light, changing its color. Although it still might be possible that it is a reflection, similar to soap bubbles of light and the soap bubbles, radiating color. This idea fits with, another book that I was reading called, it's out of the Great Courses, and it does fit. I got this idea, this knowledge from the Great Courses. It's called the Compton Effect. I'm pretty sure it's common knowledge. What the Compton Effect is that the photon bounces off the electron, and this changing a wavelength. Mathematically calculated by Planck's constant. Planck's constant is 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34th power, which was divided by the mass of the electron times the speed of light, so that's h divided by mass and light. Again, this idea was found in another book by Stephen. At least, well, I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but I'm pretty sure the Great Courses and the Compton Effect. But I've read other books, having similar ideas that this is how the colors in the room, that the mass somehow, takes the light and does something with it, which makes sense with, the binary code. That you could type in a number and change a color, and that could be this room. So that's really interesting, and that's really where I'm trying to find. Now, a change wavelength makes a different particle. To consider the original idea of the quantum house I came up with, actually, I'm going to try to, I called it event help today. I'm going to try to, patent the idea, because it's a really great idea. Now, I considered the idea of the quantum house. I found the creator in one's body. The mass times the speed of light, mc, divides Planck's constant, which is 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34th power, making the light or creator or photon exchanger producing an object or matter making a photon for the cause of bouncing off MC. Light bouncing off of mass and light could be the test of faith in one's creative power. The creator creates light, and under the powers of the Compton Effect, it can make possibly all wavelengths. So, say one went to produce oxygen, the atomic number 8 on the periodic table. We could use H and the H, which is Planck's constant, divided by MC as the creator, which is, H would be the creator, which is 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34th power, because the creator would be the big guy, you know, the big one. And that's what's being divided, mass and light divided by this big guy. But he's a negative guy, he's a bigger negative one. Which is the mass of oxygen is about 8. I just took a guess, you know, this isn't one of those, you know, where I want somebody to catch me wrong. This is just an idea. So I'm going to just say 8 is the weight. And the speed of light is c. So, you know, 8 times c, or light, would be the force or threat. As the creator, I would have to shoot Planck's constant. This negative guy, actually, he wouldn't be the creator, but he could be the creator. And he has to shoot Planck's constant, because the light and the mass, I mean, the oxygen at 8 is times the speed of light. Going against this negative guy is dividing the situation, and once divided that situation, you know, you're going to get a brand new thing. You got a big negative, you got some light, you got some mass, and you divide it, and you get a new wavelength, and that's basically, in my understanding of the Compton Effect. So, you know, I mean, it's really interesting, and I definitely highly recommend looking further into it. Let's say this quantum house had a computer or advanced machine attached to it, and the soul or Planck's constant was attached to it. What one could do is take the accounted atoms of the person's body, which is now the quantum house, because, you know, you could say it's a body, or you can say you're the house, which is the atoms within the body, you know. And you take the atoms of the person, which is the body, which is now the quantum house, which are accounted for on the computer. So that means my whole body is accounted for. You know, all the atoms are accounted for. You know, they're on the computer. I can take and check them all out on the computer. Each atom or molecule would be named. The Planck's constant would be the constant in each atom. You know, so you know, we drop the atom or the constant into the different mass times the C slot. But we can drop the C, but we want. So weight 2 would be 2C, weight 4 would be 4C, etc. So we could also turn that mass times C into binary, which makes the mass 1 ones. So mass 8 would look like just 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, all the way up till you get to 8. You know, you take something like Planck's constant or the light, and you drop it into this 1, 1, 1, 1, and then it divides it, and making the wave. So, you know, that would be part of the atom in your body, or part of your body would go into this 8 mass thing and divide who you are for a moment, which sends out a piece of light, of a new light, which, you know, it's deep stuff, but it's really good. Now, just a guess, but I think having only studied Planck's constant for a couple of hours, that it is more than the speed of light, because light is the speed of light, because light is the barrier causing the photon to change light and mass. So if the light can divide its possible opposition, which is 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34th power, then somewhere around 10 to the negative 34th power is the absolute power. It's said in the beginning of lecture, you know, 50 of the great courses. It's, you know, I don't have it right here, but I might leave it. If I post this video on YouTube, I'll leave it in the description. The minimum amount of energy one can retain through the shorter and shorter wavelengths is 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34th power. these packets of energy, of photon or quantum, talked about, is in my mind bundled up in a few ideas. Atoms, wavelength, frequency, radiation, particle. I think it's all bundled in the ether, an enclosed ether. Waves cycling in enclosed ether. Some may think of it as an atom, the place where the photon comes from, and we go into this atom enclosure and see the wave within, either similar to the string theory. So in other words, you know, you have a space which is the ether. You know, these spaces are, they just are. You take, you know, some power and you enclose a wave. So once your Planck's constant is divided and you produce that different color, that different wave, you put it in the ether cycling. In the ether around power. You know, you power it up in the circle, which some people might call the atom. It might even be it can go pretty deep. I sometimes think of it as a grand unified theory because it has string theory, it has, you know, it has the quantum theory, it has the atomic theory. So, you know, I pretty much favor it. Again, so the idea of the quantum house, or one can even think of it as a virtual reality, VR. But if we were living in virtual reality upon the Earth, it would be similar. But obviously the Earth has much more particles than just the quantum house. Within the quantum house is where I could start to build my Earth. You know, through this, you know, dividing of Planck's constant, and, you know, the light making different waves, changing its waves, you know, through power of work. You know, you could keep building stuff like, you know how your apartment gets filled with dust because there's dust in your body, so you would keep producing these particles, matters and stuff. So within the quantum house is where I could start to build my Earth. That's if I could supply myself with enough capacitors to store the data. I mean, this is pretty deep stuff. Now, Planck's constant is truly a constant if it is the constant, if he's probably not gonna, you know, this is kind of my thing. I mean, no one's gonna come over here and actually, you know, sponsor this idea. But, you know, I know that, I mean, Planck, you know, Mr. Planck himself probably wouldn't want to sponsor this idea. It's pretty intense. But if Planck's constant is truly a constant, then to build a VR Earth or a VR universe, one would only sort of need is a structure or electrons, or should I say matter particles. And because of what I've read about the Compton Effect, which is, you know, Planck's constant divided by the mass and the speed of light, mass times the speed of light, I would think mass times the speed of light would be the matter particle dividing the constant into much given, the code and structure of the code is in place. To give a good analogy of the situation where I would or possibly could use this idea is I would place electronically at first an electron or electrons of all sorts of weights in a structure. For instance, structure of an image of a TV screen, or say a horizontal line. Like, let's just pretend for a moment. Let's pretend lithium particles were used on TV, because, you know, their weight is about 3. I'm just guessing here. I think it's 3. Makes a green wave. Let's just pretend 3 makes a green wave. So that'd be the code. That'd be like the weight to making, you know, you continue typing 3 and 3 and 3 and 3 until you get your pixels, and you get your pixels and you make a green line. I'm just guessing. I never even studied this stuff, but, you know, if no one invents this stuff, if this isn't it, I mean, I really gotta find this stuff because this is good. So we would need, you know, 10 to the 24th power of these 3s just to make a line across the TV screen. So it's a lot of work involved. It'd be a lot of work involved taking the weight of the 3, you know, continue typing it to make the waves appear there. And this is the green line. This is the horizontal green lithium line, per se. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful for me to think about. One would type on the keyboard a code of a wave placing matter particles somewhere in virtual space or hyperspace, moving very, very small matter particles through the power of their fingertips, giving electricity, working, and making money, and having in the power of their hands the ability to not just create the green lithium mine, but also spark even video game worlds, if not the very universe we live in. But, like I wrote before, 10 to the 24th power of 3s, just typing 3s, you know, that's a lot of work. I have a wild imagination. I just made this up so, you know, whoever watches this video can open their mind to try to understand what these guys were actually talking about. Because these guys, like Max Planck, he was back there in the early 1900s, you know, 1800s or something. I mean, 1910, 1920. These are when they were writing this stuff. I think it's theories, you know, but how can somebody be somebody and still be in a trial and error stage? I mean, he's either right or he's wrong. So, you know, I might as well just layer on top of something, on top of his theory. And maybe it's a good theory, maybe it's a bad theory, but the theory is, you know, you create these waves. There's powers that put these waves in a circle in the ether within a power structure. You go in and see the wave protected in the ether, in the structure where you're both protected. You come out, so it's not really the atom shooting out a quantum or a photon. It's you going in and seeing this, you know, you go into the ether from, you know, within one of the strong forces, within the strong force. But, you know, only time will tell if that's really true. Now, it's probably how and why the Earth, or at least some of the Earth, switched to digital. Because if we use our power to move the electricity or electrons into place, then we no longer owe coal power plants or the Earth for taking its coal, making tiny particles, but making a huge world. I heard of an idea, and rather invented it as well, of a man who had a job of building one of these VR worlds. And according to my understanding, he would lie in bed, shut his eyes, and slowly move the matter particles in place, you know, for Planck's constant to shine in and see, you know, almost, it's like Planck's constant, but some people call it the light too, you know, that your light wave goes in and there's negative, so he divides, you know, but, you know, it really depends on how you look at that. But, you know, this guy, it kind of is me, but not me. I mean, the idea was kind of invented together, but he does this in his mind. He moves with power the electrons into place so somebody of light can, you know, shine a light and divide itself to see what he's placed. You know, it's pretty weird, but making a world on a computer is a bit more logical. Because one would definitely want to be sure of powers and authorities, and that you won't go on, you know, off the deep end and you kind of like losing your mind, and who knows, you know, how crazy that idea could get. So, I mean, I definitely think, you know, checking with the authorities and, you know, having some friends to, you know, tell you which ones are good, which ones are bad, to have some insight, some input, some information, some correction. Again, we would lie in bed. Actually, again, he would lie in bed and work placing brain particles in place to hallucinate, or shall I say, live in VR. I mean, that's a world all on its own right there. I mean, I don't even know if this is true, with what this man was kind of telling me, or hinting towards, but it's not that far from reality, because, I mean, the eyeballs, I have no reason why my eyeballs perceive the light around me, except that it's kind of like a hallucination in a sense. So maybe the brain was originally wired to see the world of the other people. But this guy, you know, he might be kind of half dead in a sense, if he's not already dead. But I never checked it out. So it's kind of a question that, you know, mortals might have a hard time getting an answer to or even talking about, so I didn't even bring it up. But again, he would lie in bed and work, placing brain particles in a place to hallucinate, or shall I say live in the VR world more fit for his living. The man, of course, at this point, been alive for a very long time, but don't quote me, that's my interpretation. One could also use the computer effect in other ways too, such as imaginary worlds. I once was asked if you are the creator of Earth, how do you create it? I thought long and hard about this question. In fact, I spent years delighting in the many answers to that question. How did you create a river? I would need nothing to start, nothing to make something, I answered. But what if it's not glorious enough? Well, I would, in the known language, I would make hard things or challenges for me to do so my creation becomes glorious. So here I have nothing, I create something. What if that something is not good enough? I'm going to cause myself to suffer a bit to make sure it's a little bit glorious, more glorious. Now, in the known language of science, one could take Planck's constant and divide it with heavier and heavier mass. Well, it's times the speed of light. I'm not quite sure on the whole math on it, because you're taking times in the speed of light. Because Planck's constant is so negative, it's really kind of hard. I haven't studied this for long, but I do know, and I do believe, that in my own language, that, if you make yourself heavier, the light becomes quite a bit shinier and more glorious. So if there's a stronger force that I have to fight against, like Planck's constant, for example, my work, will get a little better. It will, and what I know about some science is that the wavelengths would get shorter. If I fight against something like Planck's constant till I divide, the situation, my wavelengths are going to get shorter and radiate more glory. So if you fight against your imagination, you will get the glory of wait a minute. Okay. In this case, we would not be talking about the computer or keyboard, but rather imagination to create nothing out of something. So this is just if I created nothing something right out of nothing. Then I was asked, if you fight against your imagination, say you get to where you're suffering heavier and heavier to create better and better work. If you fight against your imagination, will you get the glory of another being? Say if you're working very, very hard to make your creation that much more alive, so you fight against your creation to make it pretty much alive in a sense. What about playing who's the creator? The glory that we desire. Having a world of people or other beings. And my answer was, well, most likely we can't be wrong or evil to others. Because if we lose against another, we lose our creation. But think about the mass dividing Planck's constant. Depending on how you look at it, I didn't think that hard about this stuff, so I'm just kind of going over my notes, they're sort of like notes at this point. But fighting against a thief would make an expensive wage. It's not that it's evil, but rather a creative work. I do not believe creating another is evil, but I don't want to lose what I've gained, so I would just say, ask yourself that question. If you are the creator of Earth, how would you create it? And you will most likely find yourself saying, I will take nothing to create something so wonderful that I will feel the ecstasy of a wonderful finished work. The harder or tougher to create, the better the product, or rather using the equation m divided by, h, which is Planck's constant, divided by mass times the speed of light. Also, that's a way to create worlds as well. I think more and more worlds. And that creation would be tiny matter particles assembled with tiny matter particles over a long, very long time, created and placed and structured to look like trees, plants, rivers, houses, etc. I'm going to just get some of this. It's going on about half an hour now. Again, I will put an analogy to this Compton effect. Mass times the speed of light, which is h divided by m times c. I think mass times the speed of light equals energy, and that energy divides Planck's constant being very negative, making the wavelength. So in other words, a giant mass or negative will change the original wave or quantum light into things that appear to be objects. I would like to call this spin a half, a virtual particle. But in another book, well, actually I'm going to stop right there because I'm going into possible quotes and I'm not going to, but I will let you know which books that I've been reading. But, these are pretty hard books to understand. I haven't really got it. Especially if you really want to try to wrap your mind around this. It's been a couple days since I've heard about the Compton Effect, read about it, and I still haven't quite got the total picture on it. So it's going to take some brain work, but I've read Stephen Hawking's Brief History of Time. Really great book. Really great book. It took a while, though. And then there's the great courses that I've been reading on, with quantum physics, quantum theory. And those are what I've been, studying for, just to see if this lines up with anything that they knew about. And I pulled out the Compton Effect because it does make sense, because I'm trying to figure out what the colors are. How does the light get in the eyes and stuff? And, that kind of makes sense that, light, whether it's me being the light or something, goes over to a heavy thing and tries to interpret it. And when it tries to interpret the wall, it kind of hallucinates the color because it makes them feel like that color because their negativity or their mass was somehow sitting there, some sort of vibration, so I actually hallucinate the color, which, I'm not going to totally credit on the Compton Effect, but I would just recommend looking up, look up that yourself and just check it out because it's pretty interesting. And that's where I'll leave it off today. I'll put some links in the description if I post this on YouTube, and I'm going to put some music in the background and stuff, but I just want to get that out there because this quantum house idea, just creating VR systems first off in the computer, and get the headset and you keep creating. I really do believe that's eternal life, at least for me, to continue creating worlds, because I don't know what I am without creating. And I've been so lost into what people have asked me, or at least spirits have asked me, about how I created the earth or how I would create the earth, that I never got confirmation on anything. I was kind of just lying and just but it was really, really fun, I have no clue how one would create the earth, but so far what I was saying kind of lines up, it takes billions upon billions of years of dust particles basically falling off your body until there's a whole world around you, and that's a real life VR system that just took forever, but that's what I'll leave it up, and y'all have a wonderful day.